We imagine we are living, but in reality, we are merely consuming time. Have you ever honestly asked yourself if it's possible to live a fulfilling life without constantly speeding up? I'm not asking about dry, empty theories. I'm talking about a profound, existential question. Is it possible to live deeply, clearly, to be truly present when the world's rhythm relentlessly urges, pulls, and programs you into someone who is always busy, always lacking, always chasing something? I once believed the answer was no, and most people I met, from successful entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, to busy parents juggling multiple tasks, believed the same. Because everything we are taught from childhood to adulthood is to be fast. Fast so as not to be left behind, fast to achieve, fast to live efficiently. Yet another quieter question began to hover within me. If the faster we go, the emptier we feel, then does that path truly lead us where we want to be? From that moment, I began to observe what I considered a waste of time. A morning of doing nothing, a slowly savored cup of tea, a walk without headphones, a conversation without a purpose. And it was in those spaces that I heard what speed had made me miss. The voice of my own self, my body, the people I love, the world. When it wasn't fragmented into notifications, charts, or urgent messages demanding a response. This book was born from that journey. Not as a call to return to a simpler past, nor an ideal living guide. It is the culmination of a practice contemplated through the movements of Qigong, through healing stories, through times when people unexpectedly found themselves not in striving, but in letting go. I don't expect you to agree with everything in this book. But if there's a moment that makes you pause and ask yourself if you could live differently, not faster, but more authentically, then perhaps that is the beginning. Now let's begin, a summary of this book. Principle 1, Slow Mind ***. One evening, I sat watching my little daughter giggle as she tried to catch the sunset rays with her tiny hands. I said nothing, just breathed in deeply for a long time, and then exhaled truly for the first time in what felt like ages. Not out of stress, not out of responsibility, but simply because I was there. Fully. I recalled another memory. I was a 19-year-old boy, sitting lost in thought on a park bench in Golden Gate Park, watching a group of elderly people perform strange movements amidst the early morning mist. They were slow, very slow, but full of power, as if they were communicating with something I couldn't see. And I asked, "What are they doing?" That question changed my entire life. 3 decades later, I write this book not as an expert, but as someone who was once lost, who sped up to the point of breaking apart, and then learned how to step back. I write not to preach, but to tell a story. Because I witnessed something miraculous. When people slow down, something opens up. A door, a wave, a stillness that I once thought only existed in ancient Tibetan monasteries, turns out to reside right within my own chest. Imagine you're at a lavish restaurant, celebrating your 40th birthday, candles flickering. The dishes are meticulously prepared, but instead of savoring them, you gobble down your food as if someone might snatch it away. Fine wine tastes like plain water. Your partner beside you is just a blur, you are not truly there. And then it all ends like a fast-forwarded movie. It sounds ridiculous, but in truth, that's how many of us live every day. We are the generation that knows we need happiness, yet we plunge headfirst into information overload, packed schedules, and constantly flashing phones. We believe busyness is proof of our worth, a sign we're doing well, but in reality we're being sucked into a vortex. The more we run, the emptier we become. We aren't living, we're processing our lives like a task list. I call my method slow method. Not because it's new. On the contrary, it's as ancient as the earth and the air. It draws from Qigong, from Taoist philosophy, and even from the wisdom of our ancestors who said, "Slow and steady wins the race." But this is the first time I've gathered these insights, presenting them not dogmatically, but in an approachable way, easy for everyday people like you and me to apply. Slow has 3 principles: slow mind, slow body, slow relationships. I have seen thousands of people transform simply by slowing down. I have seen those at death's door revive through breathing exercises. I have seen couples on the brink of breaking up find each other again just by truly listening one last time. And I begin at the starting point of all transformation, the mind. Have you ever heard the voice in your head? No, not the voice of sober reason, but that constant whispering, "You're not good enough. Why haven't you finished this yet? What if that happens? Don't forget." A voice so familiar you might think it's yourself. But it's not. It's just the drunk monkey, in your head my term for the untrained mind. It's immature, chaotic, and incredibly good at distracting you from the present. That's why, on a beautiful afternoon, when you could be watching your child sleep or enjoying a cup of tea, your mind is replaying a terrible meeting from this morning or conjuring an ugly scenario for tomorrow. You can't turn off your mind, but you can teach it to settle by slowing down, by breathing. Let me tell you about Martin, an experienced pilot who had flown all over the world but never truly landed. Until he was diagnosed with leukemia, doctors told him to arrange his affairs as he only had a few months left. Lying in his hospital bed, Martin accidentally watched a Qigong program on television. It was me. He started following those slow movements. First, only in his imagination, then with his whole body. No one thought he would recover, but he not only survived but became healthy again, even refreshed as if he'd never been ill. Martin told me, "You brought me back." No, I didn't. He himself returned from the realm of speed, back to the rhythm of life. Martin wasn't the only one. There's a common thread among all who embark on the slow living journey. They all thought they couldn't, they all thought they had no time. But I discovered the opposite. Precisely asterisk because you don't have time, you must asterisk live slowly. Because time doesn't extend itself, you have to learn how to expand your experience within each moment. We're accustomed to seeing time as a linear flow, constantly rushing forward. But have you ever felt a moment strangely stretch out? A smile, a gaze, a deep breath, as if time stood still. That's not an illusion, it's a sign you've entered the realm of presence. I once sat in a small tea house in California where there was no Wi-Fi, no laptops, and no phones allowed. The owner, David, when I asked him how he was, simply replied with one word, "Enchanted," then looked out the window. It was there I understood that slow living isn't about doing less, it's about feeling more. You can start with a cup of tea. That's the first exercise I teach, mindful tea drinking. Slowly brew, slowly pour, slowly bring it to your lips, doing nothing else. No podcasts, no emails, no messages, just you, the water, the aroma, and the taste. A simple experience, yet it's like unlocking a long-forgotten part of your brain. I once met Helen, a kind but restless woman. She came to my Qigong class and constantly interrupted others who were meditating, interjecting to ask, "Teacher, what color is the sea in this visualization?" Or recounting her trip to Mexico while I was guiding students to feel their breath. I knew she wasn't deliberately disruptive, she just didn't know how to stop. I told Helen, not everyone is ready to hear the voice in their head, but silence doesn't mean emptiness. It's where truly profound things dare to emerge. Helen cried and stayed for the entire course. Gradually, her inner voice quieted. It didn't disappear, but it no longer hijacked the conversation. Our minds can be trained just like muscles. If you know how to worry, you know how to meditate. Worry is a form of negative meditation. You intensely focus on what you don't want. Meditation, simply put, is shifting that focus to what you desire, what you have, what is happening right now. I once took a friend to a Zen meditation class. In the middle of the session, he raised his hand and said, "Excuse me, my mind is too active. I can't meditate." The teacher smiled and asked, "Do you know how to worry?" "Of course," he replied. "Then you know how to meditate," the teacher said. The whole class chuckled, but no one forgot that lesson. You don't need to turn off your thoughts, you just need to choose which ones to dwell with. One of the most powerful tools I teach is gratitude meditation, not a dry, be grateful exercise, but a quiet practice every morning and evening. Reminding yourself of the small things you have, your breath, the sunlight, loved ones, memories, the wind, a roof over your head, each one like a bead of pearl rolling through your hands. One time, I stood with my daughter by a lake in Washington, D.C. as dusk settled. The sun painted the water in red and orange hues. She smiled, and I smiled too. Neither of us said anything, and there was no need to. I was fully there not as an author, a speaker, or an exemplary father, but simply as a human being living a beautiful moment. You can kickstart this journey with a simple question: where am I? It sounds funny, but that's the lesson I received from a Tibetan Lama when I asked, "Teacher, can you define mindfulness in the simplest way?" He simply asked back, "Where are you?" "I'm here." "How do I know?" I was speechless, then felt myself truly be here. As if I had just woken from a long dream, presence flooded in, and all my senses became sharp. I heard the wind, felt the humidity in the air, the beat of my heart in my chest. You can try closing your eyes, placing your hands on your chest and abdomen, taking a deep breath, then asking, "Where am I?" and answering, "I am here." Each time you answer is a return, and gradually you will no longer be dragged everywhere by the past, the future, the shoulds and ifs in your head. Once you've returned to the present, the next question to ask is, why live here in this moment? What is so precious about it? The answer isn't in words, but in the feeling you get when you are truly present. That feeling isn't glamorous. It's not a peak exhilaration like moments of aha or triumph. It's a gentle, spreading wave, like sunlight filtering through leaves. It doesn't startle anyone but is enough to make you pause, take a deep breath, and quietly exclaim, "Here it is." The more present you are, the more clearly you perceive a strange truth. All the deepest joys happen in the present. There is no joy to be found in the future. What you call belief in the future is just the feeling you have right now. A good feeling, you name it hope. A comfortable feeling, you call it reassurance. But it's all happening now asterisk. When I ask my students about their happiest moments, they often talk about a family meal, a hug after an argument, an afternoon spent by a fireplace. No one mentions achieving a KPI, completing a project, or paying off a bank loan. Those things can be motivators, destinations, but true joy is quiet and somewhat unrelated. You don't need to go all the way to the Himalayas to find peace. A leisurely afternoon stroll in the park is enough if you don't bring along a distracted mind. Just as you can't truly enjoy music if the speakers are playing two songs at once, you can't live deeply if your mind is scattered in a million directions. Reducing mental noise is a prerequisite for clearly experiencing life. I have a very simple exercise. Write down a list of things that bring you back to the present. A hot cup of tea, your child's hug, the scent of cinnamon, the feeling of cool water on your skin. List them out. Everyone has their own collection of moments. When you know what brings you back, you won't be perpetually stuck in an endless loop. We don't just need presence to experience life, we also need it to protect our health. Let's talk about what has become the silent epidemic of our time: stress. Stress isn't just an emotion, it's a complex physiological system involving nerves, hormones, and immunity. Did you know that over 70% of current diseases are directly linked to chronic stress? Stress doesn't just make you tired, it erodes your immune system, weakens internal organs, and accelerates aging. It's nothing less than a small dose of poison you ingest every day, believing it to be normal. I once told a student, if someone walked around a room and forced everyone to swallow a harmful pill every morning, everyone would surely react. But if stress comes from within your own mind, you sit quietly and endure it. The problem is, we aren't taught how to release stress, we're only taught how to tolerate it. I have an exercise called primal shaking. It simulates the self-healing instinct of animals. When a horse experiences fear, it trembles violently to release trapped energy. Humans, on the other hand, suppress it, and that suppression keeps fear, anger, and anxiety trapped in the body, damaging it from within. When I guide students to shake their whole bodies, they initially find it strange, but after just a few minutes, a sense of relief spreads. Some break down crying, others burst into laughter. Their bodies remember how to heal themselves. No medicine, no theories needed, just permission to let go. Slowing down isn't just a spiritual matter, it's a biological choice. And if you want to go deeper, let's move to the breath. I call breath vitamin O because it's the most underrated nutrient on Earth. We breathe over 20,000 times a day, but most of it is unconscious and incorrect. Incorrect how? By breathing shallowly, rapidly with our chests through our mouths. These seemingly harmless habits constantly activate our nervous system, keeping us in a state of alarm as if we're confronting a grizzly bear, when in reality, we're just replying to an email. I remember once sitting with a general practitioner. He told me, if I could bottle the benefits of slow, deep breathing into a pill, it would be the world's #1 bestseller. Proper breathing is the most potent medicine, costing not a penny. I started teaching my students the 5-5 technique, inhaling for 5.5 seconds and exhaling for 5.5 seconds. Why that specific number? Because when you maintain this breathing rhythm, your heart rate, nervous system, hormones, and emotions synchronize into a single rhythm, the rhythm of regulation. A student named Sarah once told me, "I've suffered from anxiety disorder for 7 years. You just told me to breathe, and it saved me from medication." She wasn't exaggerating. She didn't need anyone to save her. She just needed to recall an innate skill, breathing like a living being, not a deadline-driven machine. Besides the 5-5 breathing exercise, I also teach an exercise called vagal breathing, which is breathing to activate the vagus nerve. This nerve connects from the brain to the heart, lungs, stomach, and controls the body's safety and relaxation responses. When you breathe this way, you tell your body there's no danger, and it responds with calm, focus, and recovery. I once taught this technique to an American soldier who had returned from a combat zone. He couldn't sleep, trusted no one, and had unprovoked panic attacks. But when he learned to breathe slowly, deeply, and evenly, something miraculous happened. He smiled a genuine, unguarded smile. "I thought this feeling had died long ago," he said. "It's like coming home." Slowing down is returning. Returning to yourself, no acting, no striving, no burden. I also guide students through alternate nostril breathing, inhale through the left nostril, exhale through the right, then vice versa. This exercise not only helps relax but also balances the brain's hemispheres, or, as Eastern philosophy calls it, harmonizes yin and yang. Many find it awkward at first, but by the third or fifth try, they can sit still and begin to hear their own voice, not the voice of thought, but the voice of feeling. I don't teach meditation to make you a good meditator. I don't care how long you sit, if your back is straight, or if your hands are in the correct mudra. I only care if you can listen to yourself, your body, your breath, your fears, your love. Are you present? Because presence is the first condition for everything else to begin. I once met a software engineer who seemed to live a normal life, no illness, no scandals, but he said, "I feel like my life is an ATM. People come, press buttons, and take from me. I don't even know who I am." I didn't advise him to quit his job or to find himself in the Andes. I simply asked, "When do you feel most real?" He pondered for a moment, then said, "When I walk in the morning before anyone calls." I told him, "Then double that time, and instead of walking to burn calories, walk to return to yourself." Each step is a breath, each breath an opportunity to live again. A week later, he returned, his eyes brighter, his voice slower, and he said, "I no longer feel like my life is an ATM, I feel like a garden." Then he laughed as if surprised by his own analogy. I told him, and I'm telling you now, your mind is a garden. Whatever you sow into it, that is what will grow. Sow anxiety and delusions will sprout. Sow criticism and anger will rise. Sow gratitude and serenity will bloom. Sow presence and peace will flourish. You can't control the weather, but you can learn to garden. Slowing down is not retreating. It's how you pause to gather momentum, but momentum to fly in a different direction, inward. That's where all true change begins. Principle 2, slow body. I once thought the mind was the origin of everything. But then one day, during a morning Qigong practice, I realized the body also has memory, and it speaks to you constantly. You just don't listen. Not because you don't want to, but because you're too busy to listen. I saw this in Rebecca, a 45-year-old successful woman, mother of 2, managing a marketing team of nearly 30 people. When she came to me, she seemed perfectly fine, dressed in expensive athletic wear, speaking eloquently and politely. But after just a few minutes of gentle warm-up, she collapsed, tears streaming down her face. Not from pain, but because her body, for the first time in 10 years, had been genuinely touched, not medically, not for fitness, but sincerely as a living entity. One that knew fatigue, loneliness, and missed what had been neglected. Our body isn't a machine, it's a garden. And you cannot treat a garden with a CEO's schedule. One thing I must state up front, slowing down doesn't mean becoming weak. Slowing down is for connecting, for listening, for healing. The world worships speed, efficiency, burning fat, building muscle, breathing through 6 HIIT sessions a week, but forgets to ask if your body is happy. Does it agree? Do you know that in Qigong, the first principle isn't about performing movements correctly, but about complete relaxation? If you can't relax, your qi, life energy, can't flow. And if qi doesn't flow, you might unknowingly be suppressing anger, sadness, or even traumatic memories. All of it will remain in your shoulders, back, neck, and abdomen, accumulating. Let me tell you about Dennis, a successful entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. Dennis had it all: money, status, a beautiful house, fancy cars, but he suffered from chronic digestive disorders. Medications, dietary changes, even surgery didn't help. An Eastern medicine doctor told him, "Your stomach can't digest your life." That statement stunned Dennis. He started coming to my Qigong class. At first, he just shook his head and scoffed. What good can these slow movements do? But he kept practicing 1 month, 3 months, 6 months later, his digestive issues disappeared. No miracle, no magic, just that his body finally got to rest. You don't need to heal a disease to live slowly, but if you don't live slowly, sooner or later you will get sick. Try looking back at a typical day. How do you eat? Swallowing quickly while checking emails, chewing while rushing to meet deadlines, hand on the mouse even before you've swallowed. I once asked a class, when was the last time you thoroughly chewed a piece of food? The entire room fell silent. I guided them through a simple slow eating exercise, chew each bite at least 30 times. At first, everyone found it silly. But then a student told me, the noodles I've been eating for 5 years finally tasted real today. Another student said, I've never felt such appreciation for food. It wasn't because the food was better, but because they were present. Food is energy. If you eat under stress, you can't digest that energy. Your body is in fight or flight mode. It doesn't believe it's safe to digest. So, the first thing you need to do before a meal isn't to choose the right vegetables or protein, but to slow your breathing. Put your phone down, look at your food as a gift. Even if it's just a simple loaf of bread, remember someone grew the wheat, someone kneaded the dough, someone baked the bread so you could have it. I once visited a monastery in China. The monks ate in absolute silence, not a single clink of spoon against bowl. They chewed very slowly. A meal lasted 45 minutes, but I had never seen people eat with such reverence. They weren't gobbling, judging, or scrolling on their phones. They were asterisk living with their food. Slow living is a form of ritual, and the body needs rituals to recover. Recall the last time you bathed slowly, slept slowly, walked slowly. That feeling isn't laziness, it's a return. I want you to start feeling your body again, not based on measurements, weight, or the mirror, but from the sensation within. Is your body trying to tell you something? I once asked a group of students, if your body were a child, are you treating it like a good parent? The entire class fell silent. One person forced a smile, I guess I'm a neglectful father. Another sighed, I think I'm making it a slave. They weren't wrong. Most of us treat our bodies like machines serving our will. We command it to wake early, work, exercise, eat scientifically. But we rarely ask it if it's okay. The body doesn't demand much, it just needs to be listened to. I teach a Qigong exercise called Go Enter the Flow, slowing down to enter the flow. This exercise isn't complicated, it's just gentle, circular movements combined with breathing. But when you truly let yourself go into it, something happens like a warm current flowing through your spine, as if every vertebra, every joint, every muscle in your body is reactivated. A student once suffered a spinal injury in a car accident. Doctors told her she would never be able to bend over again. But after 3 months of practicing this exercise, she stood up, bent down to touch her toes, and burst into tears. Not because of a miracle, but because her body was finally trusted again, no longer a battlefield, but a companion. Slowing down doesn't mean weakness. On the contrary, slowness is strength. Have you ever seen a true martial artist move? No one is hurried. Every movement has a purpose, every step has weight. Bruce Lee once said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And to practice one kick 1,000 times, you must slow down, little by little, feeling each and every sensation. I have an exercise called spinal breathing. No, you don't actually inhale air into your spine, but you imagine you are. Inhale, drawing the energy up from the base of your spine to the crown of your head. Exhale, guiding it down. It's a simple breathing exercise, but capable of activating life energy, what the East calls chi or prana. When you breathe this way, you're not just bringing oxygen to your lungs, you're awakening the central axis of your body. Your nervous system begins to calm, areas of pain begin to soften. You start to realize, my back isn't just for support, it's the sacred pillar of all my emotions, memories, and inner strength. I once had a marathon runner as a student. He was accustomed to speed, good at enduring pain, disciplined like a machine. But he also had problems with his knees, back, and insomnia. When practicing Qigong, he wasn't used to it. How can this slow pace be called training? He asked. I told him, consider this the software and running is the hardware. No one asterisk runs asterisk software, they install it. After 3 weeks, he returned. I'm starting to hear my knees, he said. Not a creak, but a sound of gratitude. I smiled. Your body, if respected, will never betray you. We've talked about movement, about breathing. Now let's talk about eating. You cannot live slowly if you still eat quickly. Eating is a ritual of connection between you and the world, between you and yourself. You ingest not just calories, but beliefs, habits, emotions. A student once told me, I'm addicted to snacks. I know it's bad, but I can't stop. I didn't give her a diet plan, I just taught her how to listen to her stomach. We did an acupressure exercise on the ear, a region that helps control cravings. Each time she wanted to eat without reason, she would simply press lightly on that point and breathe. Gradually, the craving no longer held power. You can also try using your finger to press the hollow point just in front of the tragus of your ear. Press gently, breathe slowly. Observe the sensation. Don't fight the craving, just be present with it. The craving is also a part of you, and like every child within us, it just needs to be heard. Another acupressure exercise I teach is for digestive support, pressing the area below the knee or the outer side of the shin where the stomach and intestines connect. Each morning before eating, just press for 1 or 2 minutes without any expectations. But after just 1 week, many people return to tell me they no longer felt bloated. No miracle, just that the body was touched in the way it wanted. And if there's one thing you always carry with you but rarely notice, it's your breath. Breath is the bridge between body and mind. And this bridge never breaks, it's just a matter of whether you step onto it. One of the techniques I teach students is vagal breathing breath that awakens the vagus nerve. This nerve runs from the brain down to the internal organs and is the main player in deciding whether you're in a fight or flight or rest and digest state. When you breathe deeply, slowly, and evenly, the vagus nerve sends signals. Everything is okay. The nervous system switches from alarm to recovery. The body begins to heal. I remember a young woman named Lily Lai who suffered from panic attacks. She told me, "My heart would race, my hands would go cold, my eyes would open wide, I thought I was going to die." After learning this technique, she wrote to me, "Now I breathe first and then I react, and surprisingly, many things don't need a reaction anymore." She didn't need to try to stay calm, she just needed to return to her body, where calmness inherently existed. Someone asked me, "How long does it take for correct breathing to become a habit?" I don't have a definitive answer, but I know this. If every morning you spend just a few minutes, just 3 minutes, breathing at a rhythm of 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, you will start your new day like a gentle melody instead of a storm, and that music will stay with you all day. Another exercise I teach is go fast, then go slow, breathing fast, then breathing slow. It sounds paradoxical, but is effective. You start with a series of fast, even breaths like pumping oxygen throughout your body. Your body awakens, and then you slow your breath. At that point, you don't need to try to relax anymore. Relaxation comes naturally, like a calm lake after a wave. Sometimes, to go slow, you need to start with vibrancy. I remember once guiding a night class through this exercise. Everyone was tired, yawning with sleepiness. After 3 minutes of fast breathing, the whole class was wide awake, eyes bright, faces flushed, bodies light as if recharged. I also teach nasal breathing. It sounds obvious, but many of us actually breathe through our mouths without realizing it. When you breathe through your mouth, your body understands it as running away. When you breathe through your nose, you activate safety mechanisms, releasing nitric oxide, a molecule that helps dilate blood vessels, increase circulation, and boost immunity. A student told me that since he started taping his mouth shut at night, he no longer wakes up tired. "I thought I was sleeping well," he said, "but in reality, I was just shutting down, not resting." Sleep isn't just about unconsciousness, it's a process of recovery if you let your body do it correctly. A method I teach to balance the 2 brain hemispheres is alternate nostril breathing. Inhale through the left nostril, exhale through the right, then switch sides. It sounds simple, but it's a silent weapon. When you do this for 3 minutes before a meeting, an argument, or a presentation, you enter it with a clear mind, an open heart, and a steady spirit. Slowing down isn't about lack of preparation, it's about preparing at the right pace. A student, an anesthesiologist, told me, "Teacher, you know what? I work in the operating room where people place their trust life and death in my hands, and I use my breath to keep myself fully present, unshaken." He doesn't meditate every morning, but whenever he goes on call, he takes one breath, then another, and he is present. Our bodies are wiser than we think. If you know how to ask, they will answer not with words, but with feelings of being lighter, warmer, more settled. Try listening as you walk. How your feet meet the ground, whether you're tense if you skip the heel or if you're stepping as if chasing something. I once guided a group on a mindful walk. No goal, no destination, just walking and feeling. After 10 minutes, one person said, "I never knew my feet could bring such a feeling of gratitude." Yes, gratitude for the feet that have carried you through an entire lifetime, yet you've never truly thanked them. I once asked a mother of 3, "When do you feel most alive in your body?" She pondered for a moment, then whispered, "When I'm breastfeeding my child." I nodded. Not because of the act itself, but because in that moment she couldn't do anything else, couldn't check her phone, couldn't chase a deadline. There was only the rhythm of two heartbeats, skin-to-skin warmth, and one body nourishing another. That is the primal state of connection. The body is no longer a means, but becomes a living link between humans and the world. And the wonderful thing is, you don't need an infant to feel that. You just need to be willing to stop. The body, in some way, is the last sacred ground left in a world that rushes too quickly. When you exercise not to look better but to feel more clearly that you are alive, you are entering the practice of slow. When you walk not to burn calories but to listen to the sound of your soles hitting the ground, you are entering your body. When you bathe not just to get clean but to let the water embrace your tired skin, you are returning. A former professional dancer, one of my students, cried after a standing still exercise. She said, "All my life I've danced, I've moved, but I never allowed myself to just stand still." That was the first time she wasn't under stage lights, there was no music, no one judging, just her and her body meeting again like long-lost friends. And that's what I want you to do. Reconnect with yourself, not through a mirror, not through BMI measurements, not through others' opinions, but through moments when you pause to breathe, to feel, to listen. I want you to think of your body as a living being with a soul. It has witnessed everything in your life: wounds, hugs, the time you fell off your bike, your first kiss, the lump in your throat, sleepless nights of worry, fists hitting walls, laughter echoing in the rain. It doesn't judge, it only remembers, and now it waits for you to return. Not much is needed. A touch, a hug, a gentle rub on your belly after eating is enough for it to know you're listening. A light exercise is enough for it to feel cherished. A minute of breathing is enough to calm a racing heart. Your body doesn't demand perfection, it just wants your presence. So, write down a daily slow ritual for yourself. It doesn't need to be complicated. Perhaps 3 minutes of breathing before eating, a walk without headphones, a morning stretch, or placing your hand on your chest before sleep and asking, "Are you okay today?" You'll be surprised by the answer. You are a forest, not a factory. And a forest needs its own rhythm: seasons of budding, seasons of shedding leaves, days full of sunlight, nights of storms. Every movement, however slow, carries meaning. Let your body live like a forest, because where there is true life, there is never haste. Principle 3: Slow relationships. There's one thing I didn't learn from books or from countless hours of meditation in the forest. You cannot live slowly if your relationships around you are still rushing. No matter how calm your mind, if your words are still hurried, your gaze still distracted, your hug still just a habit, then the stillness within you will also be swept away. I realized this while in a group therapy session with a couple. On the surface, nothing seemed wrong, but between them was an ocean of loneliness. The wife said, "I see my husband every day, but I haven't met him in 3 years." That statement kept replaying in my mind: seeing but not meeting, looking but not seeing, touching but not connecting. Connect, slowly be present. And the paradox is that to truly love others, you must first learn to touch yourself. I call it slow self-love, loving yourself slowly. You might think self-love is a weekend at the spa, shopping, or self-indulgence. But for me, true self-love is sitting down and not running away from yourself, daring to face the fear, anger, and hurt that you often hide under a "I'm fine" facade. I have an exercise called heartfulness, not mindfulness, but presence with the heart. You place your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and ask, "Is there anything I'm feeling that I haven't dared to express?" Then listen in silence. No interpretation, no rationalization, just listening. A 60-year-old man, a former Marine, burst into tears during that exercise. "I see a frightened child," he said. "I never allowed it to exist." And it was when he acknowledged the presence of that child, vulnerable, weak, authentic, that his persistent anger disappeared. Self-love isn't about being confident all the time. It's about daring to be weak, to tremble, to be unready, and still embracing yourself. I also guide students through a mirror work exercise. Stand in front of a mirror, look into your own eyes, and say, "I am here, I see you, I won't leave." It sounds simple, even cheesy, but try it. Very few people dare to look into their own eyes for more than 30 seconds, because there you will see everything: no facade, no role-playing, no slogans. A student named Min once told me, "I'm good at teamwork, but I can't maintain a relationship." After doing the mirror exercise, he said, "I realized I've never stayed with anyone, not even myself." From that day on, he began each morning with a minute of looking into his own eyes, not to fix his hair, but to be present. When you are present with yourself, you can truly be present for others. And that leads us to the next area, slowing down conflict. Once I was in a couples counseling session. The wife had just said, "I feel lonely." The husband immediately interrupted, "It's because you always overreact." The wife turned away, her face darkening. I told the husband, "Do you realize you didn't hear what she said?" He scratched his head. "I did hear her. She said she felt lonely." I asked again, "Did you hear the feeling she carried? Did you hear the asterisk longing beneath those words?" At that moment, the husband fell silent, and for the first time, he truly looked at his wife, not to correct her, not to react, but to touch what was unspoken. A moment later, he softly said, "I'm sorry, I'm here." Conflict isn't scary, only absence within conflict is scary. You can slow down an argument with just one question: is this activating something old within me? Or simply, where am I speaking from my heart or from a wound? I teach a mindful gaze exercise. You and your partner sit facing each other, looking into each other's eyes for 2 minutes without saying anything. Then you take turns saying, "I see you, I hear you, I am here." It sounds like a child's exercise. But after 5 minutes, many people burst into tears because they had been living next to each other for so long but had never truly seen asterisk each other. Love doesn't die from lack of words, it dies from lack of presence. An older woman once told me, "I lived with my husband for 40 years, but the closest I ever felt to him was when we looked at each other without saying anything." I asked, "When was that?" She said, "When he was sick in the hospital. He no longer had the strength to argue, no words to blame, only his eyes." That answer stayed with me for years as a reminder. Sometimes language isn't a bridge, but a barrier. I once worked with a young couple. They truly loved each other, but every conversation seemed to erupt into a battle. I had them practice an exercise I call Conscious Communication Boot Camp. It's not complicated. One person speaks, the other listens and repeats, no additions, no edits, just repeats every single word exactly. "I hear you say that you feel hurt when I'm silent. I hear you say that you're afraid I'll abandon you." At first, they couldn't stand it. "It sounds too robotic, teacher," they complained. But after a few rounds, the wife was silent for a long time, then took her husband's hand. "I've never felt you listen to me like this before." Slowing down is about seeing each other again, not through prejudices, not through roles, just human seeing human. Then I told them, when you hear someone say something painful, don't try to fix it. Don't say, "Oh, it's not so bad." Just say, "I am here." That's the only thing we can truly give each other. Love doesn't need logic, it needs presence. Now if you ask, what about sex? Does slow living make sex grow cold? I'll tell you the opposite. Slow sex is real sex. You don't need to perform acrobatics in the bedroom to keep the flame alive. You need presence not as a sexually attractive body, but as a fully present, complete, unguarded soul. I once taught a couple the microcosmic orbit breathing exercise. Both sat opposite each other, not touching, just breathing and imagining a stream of energy moving from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, then down to the lower abdomen, like a closed loop. After a few minutes, both started to sweat, not from exertion, but because energy surged. It was a wordless connection, where you make love not with muscles, but with consciousness, where you don't need to touch to meet each other. We call it chi sex, sex based on energy, not to prolong lovemaking, but to penetrate deeper levels of intimacy. There, each touch is a meditation, each gaze is a breath. No right or wrong, no techniques, no goals, only the slow, full, unhurried rhythm of instinct. I remember an elderly couple, both over 60. They practiced fusion of yin and yang, qigong, which is integrating sexual energy with life energy, not in the usual way of intercourse, but by meditating side by side, breathing in sync. The husband said, "We no longer live to attract each other, but to be with each other." And I believe that's the kind of connection young people today crave, even if they haven't named it. Sex doesn't die from boredom, it dies from disconnection. And you can revive it by slowing down, making time for a genuine kiss, a long hug, a gaze that doesn't quickly turn away. I also teach about energy exchange, not just in romantic love, but in all interactions. When you walk into a room, what do you carry with you? A mess of unresolved emotions or an open space ready to receive? One of my students is an elementary school teacher. After learning this practice, she went back and began each class with a minute of silence, no words, no commands, just to allow the whole class to be present. And the amazing thing is, the children were quiet too. "They understand, teacher," she told me. "They know when adults are truly present with them." Connection doesn't depend on age, it depends on presence. Someone once asked me, If there was only one way to maintain a lasting relationship, what would you choose? I didn't hesitate. Stillness. Not the silence of avoidance, but the stillness of connection, where two people don't need to say anything but still understand, don't need to prove anything but still believe, where a handhold is enough to replace 100 apologies. I once saw this with a couple in a partner Qigong class. They came together after a tragedy, the loss of a child. No one spoke during the entire session. But when I guided them through the breathing in pairs, exercise sitting back to back, breathing in sync, they connected, not skin to skin, but heart to heart. The husband gently trembled, the wife closed her eyes, a tear fell, and I knew they had just found each other again after a long-lost journey. That is one of the powers of paired breathing, not to synchronize lung rhythms, but to remember, I am still here for you. I believe if every couple committed to spending 3 minutes each day breathing together, the world would see half as many divorces. I also teach acupressure on the hands, feet, and ears, areas connected to the reproductive glands and internal organs. But what I want to emphasize isn't the technique, but how you touch. A touch can heal or harm, depending on what it carries within. Once, I instructed a man to touch his wife's hand as if it were the last time. He started awkwardly, clumsily. But then when I told him, don't touch like a doctor, touch like someone who is apologizing, his hand trembled slightly. His wife cried, not because of a perfect touch, but because for the first time after years of living together, she felt his sincerity. I also have exercises to restore connection in relationships that have faded. One of the most powerful is 5-minute eye contact. Look into each other's eyes without blinking, not to test feelings, but to peel off the mask. You cannot pretend under that gaze. All layers of defense gradually dissolve, leaving only the true person with their cracks, their desires, and even things they never dared to confess. A couple once argued throughout a session. At the end, I told them, you don't need to explain anymore, just look at each other. They reluctantly complied. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And then the man, who was always so tough, broke down crying. He said, I've looked into your eyes for 7 years, but I've never truly seen you. The wife took his hand, no longer angry. No need for logic. We always think communication means words. But sometimes it's the gaze, the breath, the silence that are the deepest voices. I once taught a woman named Anne. She was in her early 30s, unmarried, an HR director, intelligent, quick-witted, sharp, but always saying, I don't know why I keep meeting the wrong people. I didn't advise her to lower her standards or open her heart. I just taught her to meditate and breathe with herself. One session, I told her, imagine you're hugging your 5-year-old self, tiny, shy, lonely. You will say what to that little girl? Anne was silent for a long time, then exclaimed, I've never hugged myself. That was the beginning. 3 months later, she hadn't found new love, but she felt more settled. And I believe someone who has learned to love themselves will no longer attract those who come to break them. Love doesn't begin with 2 people. It begins with one whole person. I once ended a workshop with a question, what do you want to take home with you? Beyond the certificate and a few exercises, a man stood up. He was in his 50s, a technical employee, the quietest person in the class. He said, I want to go home and listen to my wife's stories without correcting her. The whole class laughed, but everyone understood it wasn't a joke. We correct each other too much. We jump in with solutions before the other person has even finished speaking. We see a tear and quickly offer a tissue or turn away. Sometimes what the other person needs isn't to be rescued, but just to be present with them in their sadness, in their confusion, in a dark place without an exit. True connection isn't in the answers, but in the ability to stay with the unanswered questions. A student once said, I love, but I'm afraid of intimacy. I asked, afraid of what? She said, afraid people will see my true self and then leave. I said, and if you always hide yourself, then who are they loving? She fell silent. We often try to be lovable instead of being real. But love is seeing both the beautiful and the ugly, both the strong and the fragile, and still wanting to stay. And that requires a slow pace. Deep relationships aren't born from special occasions, but from very ordinary moments. A touch while washing dishes together, looking up from a screen to ask, do you need me? A text message not out of obligation, but out of remembrance. Small things, repeated slowly, deeply enough to become easy. Finally, I encourage students to write a slow relationship ritual. A minute of eye contact before a meal. A full, embracing hug before leaving the house. A word of thanks each night. A moment to place hands on each other and breathe together. No need for words, not to improve love, but to keep the ember glowing. A fire that doesn't flare up or flicker out, but stays warm, persistent, and always present. We search for love everywhere, but if we don't slow down, we will walk past it without noticing. I once concluded a session with a final exercise. Write a short letter to someone you love. No need to send it, just write with complete presence and honesty. An elderly woman wrote to her deceased husband, "Darling, I no longer regret not saying I love you. I only regret saying it too quickly. Do you understand? Love doesn't need too many words. But if possible, let those words live long through the slowness you pour into them. Don't rush to love, don't rush to forgive, don't rush to leave. Slow down to see the other person more clearly, and most importantly, to see yourself in every relationship. Because in the end, we're not looking for anyone else. We're only looking for a place where we are seen, understood, accepted, and can stay. If you've come this far with me, please pause for a breath and just breathe. No need to think, no need to remember, just breathe. As if you're standing on the edge of a river, everything has passed, and now is the time to look down at the water to see who you are after all. You've journeyed through the mind, where the voices in your head once controlled you like an invisible commander. You've journeyed through the body, where for so many years you lived within it, but never truly with asterisk it. You've journeyed through relationships, spaces once filled with many words but little listening. And now, with all armor shed, you stand lighter, fuller. Slow living isn't a destination, it's a way of being in this life. Like someone who doesn't try to be right, doesn't try to be first, doesn't need to be the best, but just needs to be the most authentic. I wrote these pages after 2 decades of listening to all kinds of people. The dying, the lovers, the recently bereaved, the parents holding their children, the soon-to-be divorced, the ones who had an epiphany while washing dishes. And they all told me one thing, unplanned: I wish I had slowed down sooner. But you don't need 20 years like me to start. You just need tomorrow, or even today. I'm not giving you a 21-day life-changing roadmap. I'm not promising that slow living will solve all your problems, but I know for sure that when you live slowly, every problem becomes clearer. And when you see clearly, you are no longer afraid. So I will share with you a daily slow ritual. Not to do enough, but to do authentically. You don't have to do everything. Choose 2-3 things and live them with all your presence. Morning, the slow start ritual. 1. Before leaving bed, place your hand on your heart and ask, how do I want to feel today? 2. Take 5 deep breaths, each 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, then get up. 3. Drink a glass of water, not just to quench thirst, but to greet your body. Feel the water touching your throat, reaching your stomach. 4. Don't touch your phone for at least the first 20 minutes of the day. Let you be the one to write today's script, not news, emails, or social media. Midday, the return to self ritual amidst the rush. 1. Set alarms to remind you 3 times a day. Stop and breathe. Each time, only 60 seconds. 2. Eat at least 1 meal slowly each day. Chew thoroughly, no screens, no rushing. See each bite as a thank you to life. 3. Spend 5 minutes walking without a purpose. No music, no calls, just walk and feel the earth beneath your feet. Evening, the slow close ritual. 1. Before sleep, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They don't need to be grand, just genuine. 2. Place your hand on your abdomen and whisper, thank you, I lived fully today. 3. Take 10 breaths, counting each one like counting life's blessings. 4. Close your eyes, not to sleep, but to return like a child burrowing back into life's nest. You see, slow living doesn't require a lot of time, it only requires a choice. And that choice you can start right now. No one needs to agree, no favorable conditions needed, no waiting for the weekend, no escaping to Bali, just you. And this moment. I write these words not for you to pause, but for you to begin. If you ask, how do I know if I'm truly living slowly? I'll tell you, you know you're living slowly when you no longer feel chased, even if your schedule is packed, even if others around you are rushing. You know you're living slowly when every movement you make, however small, has a piece of your soul in it. When you listen to someone tell a story and don't wait for your turn to reply. When you touch a friend's shoulder, not out of politeness, but because you want to convey something warm. When you see the sunset light cast on the kitchen wall and stop for an extra 2 seconds, not to take a photo, but to breathe with it. When you're washing dishes and realize your hands, the water, the bubbles, all are part of a grand lesson of life. being present in the small things. I once met an old Japanese man who had lived through 2 wars, lost his wife, raised 2 children, and then retired in a village near Mount Fuji. I asked him, "Grandfather, what's your secret to a long life?" He just looked at me, chewed a piece of pickled radish very slowly in his mouth, then said, "You see, this piece takes 12 chews to eat. If you only chew it 4 times, it becomes something else, no longer a radish, but just something to get over with. If you live your whole life as if you're eating something to get over with, it'll be very short." I was speechless. At that moment, I understood. Slow living isn't a skill, it's an attitude toward life, a way of interacting with everything. Not as things to be processed, but as things to be felt. And it is that feeling the warmth, feeling the sound of rain, feeling the heaviness in your chest, feeling the gentleness from a stranger's gaze that truly fills life. Not events, not destinations, not diplomas or recognition, but complete presence in the very ordinary moments of life. You can be an extremely busy person, yet still live slowly if you dare to say no to things that make you absent from your own life. You can be someone with few choices, but still live deeply if you dare to choose one moment each day to look, to breathe, to talk to yourself with all sincerity. I don't expect you to remember all the exercises, all the concepts, but if at some point, amidst a day full of dust and wind, you stop and ask yourself, "Where am I?" then I know we've met somewhere in the rhythm of life. Slow living is a silent revolution, no banners, no shouting needed. It starts with one person you from 1 second right now. And if I could wish one thing, not for the world, but for you, it would be this. I wish you could fully live every single moment you are present in this life, with your whole body, mind, and heart. Thank you, not just for listening to the very end of this book, but because you have accepted a not-so-easy challenge, to pause amidst a world that constantly urges you to keep running. Throughout this journey, you may have resonated with some things, disagreed with others, and left some parts hanging. But it is in those moments when you hesitated, pondered, even fell silent, not knowing what to think, that is where true connection happens. No need for agreement. No need for liking it. Just presence. No one can ever finish learning how to live slowly. It's not a skill to be perfected, but a way of life to be rediscovered every day. And if this book has any meaning, perhaps it's not in its concepts or exercises, but in the simple yet profound question it posed. Are you truly living your life or just passing through it? If you feel that this book, or even a tiny part of it, has stirred something real within you, I hope you'll take a few minutes to write down your thoughts. No need for praise or criticism, no flowery language, just authenticity. Your comments aren't for the author to read and be pleased, but for the next reader, which is you, in another moment to have a chance to pause, reflect, and perhaps embark on an encounter with yourself. You can also leave a review, not for a score, but for the value of shaping experience through language. When you can name what has touched you, you are also pulling it from the vague into concrete understanding. And now, goodbye and see you again.